أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم Assalamu alaikum audience and welcome to another of the business communication uh, lecture series sessions. Let's start. So let me share the screen first. uh, Here it is. Today we are going to discuss the non-verbal part of the messages and combinedly the verbal and the non-verbal part of the message. They combinedly provide certain meanings and they are being interpreted by the receiver. So let's discuss what they are and how does this thing works. So the very first thing that we need to define is non-verbal communication. The nonverbal communication or the correspondence comprises of that component of a message that is not encoded in words. Or nonverbal piece of the message will be, in general, uh, be less cognizant and usually uncovers the sender's preferences. In the event that the verbal message doesn't match the nonverbal correspondence, the accomplished communicators will, in general, accept the nonverbal message. The nonverbal communication is the transmission of the message or signal that the message or signal through a nonverbal platform such as eye contact. All these things will be discussed in the next session, but let me mention the names first. Such as eye contact, facial expressions, gestures, posture, and the distance between the two individuals. It includes the use of visual cues such as body language, which is classified as a kinetic behavior, distance, that's the proximity or the proxemics, and the physical environment slash appearance, that's the physical characteristics. And then comes the voice, that's the paralanguage, and specifically that of the touch, and it's classified as the haptics. Uh, it can also include the use of time, that's the chronomics, and eye contact and the actions of looking while talking and listening. Frequency of the glances, patterns of the fixation, pupil dilation, and blink rate. All of these things are basically those part of the message that do convey are basically those things which do convey a message, but they are not particularly encoded in the form of encoded in the form of the words. So how does this started? Charles Darwin began to study the nonverbal communication as he noticed the interactions between the animals, such as lions and so on and so forth, and realized that they can communicate, and they usually communicate by gestures and expressions. For the first time, a nonverbal communication was studied, and its relevance was questioned at that time. So, the Charles Darwin was the very first person to study all these things. Today, scholars argue that the non-verbal communication can convey more meaning than the verbal communication. Some scholars state that most people trust forms of non-verbal communication over the verbal communication. Just as a speech contains non-verbal elements known as paralanguage, including voice quality, pitch rate, loudness, speaking style, uh, some other features like rhythm, intonation, and stress. Written text have non-verbal elements such as handwriting style. If someone is having a physical write-up and that's handwritten, not typed, then there is a specific handwritten style. So the handwriting style that does identify the type of the person. The spatial arrangements of the words or the physical layout of the page, all these things basically convey. However, much of the study of nonverbal communication is focused on the interaction between individuals, where it can be classified into three principal areas: environmental conditions where communication takes place, then the physical characteristics of the communicators, and then the behavior of the communicators during the interaction. Um, One last thing to add in this before we move towards the different parts and different other aspects of the non-verbal part of the communication, and that is obvious, and that is culture. Culture plays an important role in non-verbal communication, and it is one aspect that helps to influence how learning activities are organized. So let's move towards the next phase, and that is uh, the different types of the non-verbal messages. Uh, Whenever you are trying to establish a better communication environment, you have to focus on different types of the non-verbal messages, and there are basically four different types of the non-verbal messages, and they are written over here. Let me read them out so that we can discuss them one by one. Number one is personal non-verbal message, that is for a specific individual. Second type of the non-verbal messages common to a group of people, and usually it is in the formal environment in the form of office, or it is in the form of a culture or a specific society. Third type of the non-verbal message is universal. That's for the humankind, and that's generally being accepted throughout the intercultural environment. And the fourth one of the non-verbal messages unrelated to the message, and that is basically the random message. That's not intentional, and that's something that's not in relevance with the message that we are conveying to the sender to the receiver. Uh, let's talk about the personal communication. The personal non-verbal communication involves various kinds of non-verbal behavior that are unique to one person. Like, for example, when I was a student, there were a couple of guys in my class who are having close friendship with each other, and they have usually fixed certain objects or certain voice or noise sort of things to obtain the attention of each other, like during class, or like even in the canteen area. They say something like, hey gentlemen. We usually say, hey gentlemen, just come here. They don't use all these wordings. They just interact by different voices, like the whistle sound or a specific synchronized whistling. So that's random to the other people, but for those individuals, that's a specific message, and they interact with each other on the basis of that specific sound. Second one is cultural nonverbal communication. Uh, it is basically a concept that's generally applicable to a group of people. It is learned unconsciously by observing others in the society or in a specific group, in Indo-Pak subcontinent. I usually mention this example repeatedly because that's what I observed while I've been interacting with different people in the society. We don't have eye contact. We don't like to have eye contact with the elders. We usually always try to look towards the um, we usually try to look downwards whenever we are talking with the elders in the society or even at the home. So that's basically a concept that's being what we can say uh, that's being followed up by different people in the society, and over a period of time this thing developed, and this thing is currently being observed with so many people of the society, that anyone in the society, they have the idea that whenever we are dealing with the elderly people, we should not stare at them, we should not have eye contact with them, we should give them respect. This is the way we respect the elders by not having an eye contact with the elders, whereas in the Western culture, this thing is totally inverse in nature. So basically, the nonverbal cultural communication is rule governed behavior, and that's being learned from different people within the society. The rules apply to the verbal and nonverbal part of the message. For example, women tend to feel free to touch each other, whereas men generally more self-conscious in the Western culture. Uh, and And the third part is universal non-verbal communication. When we talk about this, uh, universal communication is behavior that's common to everyone in the society, and even beyond this boundaries of the society. That's for the entire humankind. If you are feeling happy, if you are joyous, or if you are sad, there are certain representations which convey the same meaning to everyone who is living at any part of the or any part of this planet Earth. So like if you're happy, you smile, and that smile conveys that you are happy, and everyone, all the humankind, just interpret this message. And when someone is feeling sadness, or or having certain grievances, then the person usually have tears in the eyes, and that's equally being understood by everyone across the borders as well. And the last one is the unrelated non-verbal message, and that's basically random message, and that's not in relevance with the specific verbal message that's being conveyed, like sneezing, or coughing during the uh, during the communication process. And that's basically a non-verbal message, and that does conveys, but it's not in relevance with the message. If someone is not feeling well, then he or she might have a cough. Like if the throat is not clear, then he or she might have a cough during the speech or the communication process. And although it's not in relevance with the message, entire message, but it conveys that the person is not feeling well, or the thought is not good for the communication process, something like that.